Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us, by Daniel H. Pink, is essentially a corporate toolkit designed to enlighten employers on the psychology of motivation and to empower them with tools to instill motivation in employees. While Dan Pink wrote Drive to influence the corporate world, I found that his thoughts resonated with me on a very personal level. The book suggests that intrinsic motivation is our future.
Old business models push the idea that we should aspire to climb the corporate ladder and work for the possibility of a raise or vacation days. The science, however, is showing that our mentality is totally outdated. We need to find success from a motivation that's more internal. We have to seek inner fulfillment through mastery of our jobs, through autonomy and self-direction, and through purpose in pursuing something bigger than self.
When economics is considered not as the study of money, but as the study of human behavior in attaining money, motivation certainly plays a role. It's thought that we're powered by three main motivators: biological drive, reward-punishment drive, and intrinsic drive. For the majority of history, organizations have targeted the first two driving forces, but have left the third largely untapped. Biological drive stems from our basic needs. We must satisfy our hunger, thirst, sleep, and other basic necessities. Fair compensation, healthcare benefits, and work time limits are all in place to ensure that our biological drives are fully fulfilled in the workplace. After basic primal drive is accounted for, most organizations then target an employee's reward-punishment drive. A corporation will reward behavior sought and punish what's discouraged. Makes sense, right? How many of us have had this carrot-stick mentality successfully imposed upon us? I know I have. As a youngster, I remember my mom incentivizing me with money to complete my chores. When I did them, I was paid for my work, and when I didn't, I was grounded. Most employers feel that targeting our reward drive is the one way to ensure that a task is completed. Engineer Frederick Taylor has a great quote that encapsulates this notion. He says, "Work consists mainly of simple, not particularly interesting tasks. The only way to get people to do them is to incentivize them properly and monitor them carefully." Dan illustrates that this carrot-stick mentality functions on the assumption that work is an inherent drudgery, and that people need to be controlled and incentivized in order to be accountable. By placing a reward on a task, an employer reminds the employee that the task at hand isn't fun at all. I remember when I was too young for an allowance, I would voluntarily bring the trash to the side of the street, greeting the garbage men at the end of the driveway. Once money came into the picture, the task became an obvious chore and lost its fun. By using contingent rewards, like if you do this task, then you'll get this reward, play is turned into work. Pink argues that rewards are also addictive in that once offered, a contingent reward, if you do this task, then you get this reward, makes an agent expect it whenever a similar task is faced. When I was 10 years old, my allowance was $5 a week. This reward slowly became commonplace for me, and my parents were essentially forced to bump my salary up. Rewards are like drugs. You develop a tolerance for a consistent reward, and the dose has to be moved up, or it will fail to continue to motivate. Pink also argues that extrinsically incentivized work creates long-term damage for the sake of short-term gain. Back to the example of me taking out the trash. Sure, an allowance incentivized me to take out the trash, but if there was ever a week that my parents couldn't chalk up the money, you bet that trash wasn't budging. That's long-term damage. Basically, when pay-for-performance schemes exceed basic compensation, they do little to instill motivation and are often detrimental to performance. Challenging Taylor's statement, Pink says that humans have an inherent tendency to seek out novelty and challenges, to extend and exercise their capacities to explore and to learn. I could not agree with this more. We are fueled by curiosity and a need for growth. The joy of completing a task can be a pervasive driver and a reward in and of itself. Pink states that intrinsically motivated behavior, centered around autonomy, mastery, and purpose, is emerging as a more productive, sustainable, and healthy way of being. Intrinsic behavior focuses on the inherent satisfaction of completing a task, and as I said, relies upon three factors. The first being autonomy. Employers must grant freedom to complete a task through whichever means necessary. The employee may have autonomy in the task, time, technique, and team. This encourages creativity, giving the employee freedom to direct the task his or herself. Some worry that employees with more freedom would shirk from responsibility, but science has found that the opposite is true.
Many companies now offer flex time in a work week, which allows employees to set time to pursue their own innovations. The American company 3M incorporates flex time. In fact, the Post-it note was actually designed during a flex hour. What would our world look like today without sticky notes everywhere?
The second factor in intrinsic motivation is mastery. We must regard our careers with incremental theory approaches. With grit, we are capable of expanding our abilities one small step at a time. In doing this, we can approach a level of mastery in the task. I was reminded to see gaps in my abilities as opportunities for growth rather than as weaknesses. I am currently an athlete and have always seen myself as a work in progress. I understand that I may never be able to attain mastery of my sport, but I'm motivated at the promise of becoming better each day. The third factor of intrinsic motivation is purpose. By contributing to a cause larger than self, one finds meaning and fulfillment. Rather than being profit maximizers, companies are turning their goals to maximize purpose. When I read Pink's words on purpose, I thought of the Greek myth of Sisyphus, a man who was punished to an eternal task of rolling a boulder uphill. Each time he reached the top of the hill, the boulder rolled back down, and he was forced to do that process all over again. Without purpose, our tasks become analogous to the story of Sisyphus. If our hard work does nothing to contribute to something larger than ourselves, we lock ourselves into a dull Sisyphus-like existence.
Pink posts some daily questions for readers to mull over, and I'll share them with you. First, ask yourself the big question. What's my sentence? If my life were to be written in a concise statement, what would it be? Perhaps yours would be, he raised strong children, or she started her own company, or he was an uplifting and empowering boss. After you've established some sort of sentence, and yeah, it's subject to change for sure, take a small step to make that more real. Align yourself with your intentions. At the end of each day, check in with yourself. Did I do a little bit more today? Did I take a step in the right direction? Did I grow? Shifting the attention back to me for an example, because the whole world revolves around me. Here's a statement. She represented Canada at the 2020 Olympics. That's an intentional statement, and that's something that I want to see for myself. I run each day. I do my stretches. I eat well. I listen to my coach. I run a little faster in practice, or a little farther, or lift a slightly heavier weight. This is incremental growth, and it's moving me towards my statement. She represented Canada at the 2020 Olympics. I look for intrinsic motivation daily, moving towards autonomy, motion towards mastery, and purpose. For something as solitary as reading and writing are, they can be really social too. I had so much fun hearing Dan Pink's compelling thoughts. I've highly recommend it to anybody looking to grow, whether corporately or personally. Thank you so much for listening.